Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, make sure to hit subscribe so you never miss the new stories we share. Let's begin. The laughter hit me before I even understood what they were laughing at. I was 17 years old, standing behind the register at Thornton's department store in downtown Chicago, and three of my coworkers had formed a semicircle near the accessories counter. Their eyes were on me. Their whispers carried just enough for me to hear. "She's wearing the same cardigan again," Madison said, not even trying to be quiet. "Third day this week." My face burned. My fingers gripped the edge of the counter so hard my knuckles went white. Her name was Madison Clark, and she was 22, beautiful, and had never worked a day in her life before this job. She didn't need the money. She was here because her father wanted her to learn responsibility, which was ironic considering she spent most of her shifts taking selfies in the shoe department. "Maybe she thinks nobody notices," said Derek, the assistant floor manager. He was 26, always smelled like too much cologne, and had been trying to get Madison's attention for months. Mocking me was apparently his strategy. The third was a girl named Brianna. She didn't say anything. She just laughed along because that's what people do when they're afraid of becoming the target themselves. I wanted to disappear. I wanted to tell them that I wore the same gray cardigan because it was the only one I owned that didn't have holes in it, that I'd gotten it at Goodwill for $3.25, that I washed it by hand every night in the bathroom sink of the group home where I lived because the laundry machines there cost $2 and I needed every cent for food. But I didn't say any of that. I just stood there, pretending I couldn't hear them, pretending the words didn't slice through me like glass. My name is Emma Reyes. I was placed in foster care when I was 9 years old. My mother died of an overdose. I never knew my father. I'd been in 7 different homes by the time I turned 15. Some were okay, some were not. The details don't matter right now. What matters is that by 17, I'd learned one thing with absolute certainty. Nobody was coming to save me. I had to save myself. That's why I took this job. Thornton's was one of the oldest department stores in Chicago, a sprawling 5-floor institution that had been around since 1952. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid $9 an hour, and they were willing to work around my school schedule. I needed to save $3,000 by the time I turned 18. That was when I'd age out of the foster system, and unless I had money for a deposit on an apartment, I'd be sleeping on the street. So I showed up, every shift, on time, in my gray cardigan and my second-hand shoes and my one pair of black pants that I ironed every morning. And I endured the laughter. I endured Madison's comments about my hair, Derek's jokes about my clothes, the way customers sometimes looked past me like I was invisible. But that Tuesday afternoon, something happened that changed everything. I didn't know it yet, but my entire life was about to shatter and rebuild itself in the span of 1 hour. The store was quiet. It was a little after 2 o'clock, that dead zone between the lunch rush and the after-work crowd. I was reorganizing a display of scarves when the elevator doors opened, and a man stepped out. He was tall, maybe early 60s, with silver hair and a charcoal suit that probably cost more than everything I owned combined. His shoes clicked against the marble floor with the kind of authority that made everyone in the room stand a little straighter. I didn't recognize him, but I noticed something strange. He stopped walking. He was looking directly at me. No, not at me, at my neck, at the necklace I was wearing. My hand instinctively went to touch it. A small silver pendant in the shape of a hummingbird, delicate, old, tarnished in places, the only thing I had left from my mother. The man's face went pale. He looked like he'd seen a ghost, and then he started walking toward me. Every instinct in my body told me to step back, but I didn't. I couldn't. There was something in his expression that rooted me to the spot, not anger, not suspicion, something deeper, something that looked almost like pain. He stopped 3 feet in front of me. His eyes were still locked on the necklace. I watched his throat move as he swallowed. His hands, which had been hanging loosely at his sides, trembled slightly. "Where did you get that?" he asked. His voice was quiet, controlled, but underneath it I heard something fragile. I didn't know what to say. My mind raced through possibilities. Had I done something wrong? Was this stolen? Had my mother taken it from someone? "It was my mother's," I said finally. "She gave it to me before she died." The man closed his eyes. For a long moment, he didn't move. He just stood there, breathing slowly like he was trying to hold himself together. I glanced around. Madison and Derek had stopped laughing. They were watching now, confused, probably wondering why this wealthy-looking stranger was so interested in the girl they'd just been mocking. "What was her name?" the man asked, opening his eyes again. "Your mother." "Maria," I said. "Maria Reyes." He nodded slowly, like the answer meant something to him, but I couldn't figure out what. "I'm sorry," I said. "I don't understand. You know something about this necklace." Before he could answer, Derek stepped forward. He had that sycophantic smile on his face, the one he used whenever important-looking customers came in. "Sir, is there something I can help you with?" Derek asked. "I'm the assistant floor manager. If this employee has done something to offend you, I can assure you." "She hasn't offended me," the man said, turning to look at Derek with an expression that could freeze water. "But I'd like to know why she's the only one on this floor actually working." Derek's smile faltered. The man glanced around. Madison was still standing near the accessories counter, phone in hand. Brianna was pretending to fold sweaters but had barely moved 3 items in the last hour. I was the only one at the register. I was the only one who had greeted customers. I was the only one who seemed to care. "What's your name?" the man asked Derek. "Derek Sullivan, sir. And you said you're the assistant floor manager?" "Yes, sir." The man nodded slowly. Then he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small leather case. He flipped it open and handed it to Derek. I watched Derek's face drain of color. "Mr. Thornton," Derek stammered. I didn't know you were coming today." My heart stopped. Thornton, as in Thornton's department store. This was the owner, the billionaire owner, the man whose family had built this company from a single storefront into a retail empire worth over $4 billion. And he was standing in front of me asking about my mother's necklace. "I wasn't planning to visit," Richard Thornton said, "but plans change." He turned back to me. "What's your name?" he asked. "Emma," I said. "Emma Reyes." He studied my face for a long moment. There was something in his eyes I couldn't read. Recognition, sorrow, I didn't know. "Emma," he repeated softly. "How old are you?" 17. His jaw tightened. I saw his eyes flick down to the necklace again. "That design," he said, "the hummingbird, do you know where it came from?" I shook my head. "My mother never told me. She just said it was special, that it would protect me." Richard Thornton took a step back. He looked like a man who had just received news he'd been dreading for years. "I need to speak with you," he said, privately. "When does your shift end?" 4 o'clock, I said. He nodded. "I'll wait." The next 2 hours were the longest of my life. I couldn't focus. I kept glancing toward the executive lounge on the 5th floor where Richard Thornton had disappeared. I kept touching my necklace, trying to understand what had just happened. Madison and Derek were silent now. They didn't mock me. They didn't even look at me. Word had spread through the store in minutes. The owner was here. He'd spoken to the teenage girl in the gray cardigan. He'd asked to meet with her privately. By the time 4 o'clock came, I was shaking. A woman in a crisp black suit appeared at the register. She introduced herself as Patricia, Mr. Thornton's executive assistant, and asked me to follow her. We took the elevator to the 5th floor. The doors opened to reveal a space I'd never seen before. Rich wood paneling, leather furniture, massive windows overlooking the Chicago skyline. Richard Thornton was standing by the window, looking out at the city. He turned when I entered. "Thank you for coming, Emma," he said. "Please sit down." I sat in one of the leather chairs. My hands were folded in my lap, knuckles white. He sat across from me. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a photograph. He handed it to me. The air left my lungs. It was a picture of a young woman. She looked like she was in her early 20s. She had dark hair, kind eyes, and a smile that seemed to hold a secret. She was wearing the exact same necklace I was wearing. "Her name was Lily," Richard said. "She was my daughter." I looked up at him. My voice came out as a whisper. She died 18 years ago," he said, "when she was 23. I felt the world tilt beneath me." "I don't understand," I said. How did my mother have this necklace?" Richard leaned forward. His eyes were wet, but he held my gaze. "Lily made 2 of those necklaces," he said. "One for herself and one for her best friend, a young woman named Maria Reyes." The room went silent. My mother had been friends with this man's daughter. "They met in college," Richard continued. "Lily was studying art history. Maria was there on a scholarship. They were inseparable. Lily called her the sister she never had." I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. "What happened to her?" I asked. "To Lily?" Richard's face tightened with old grief. "She got sick," he said. "A rare autoimmune disease. The doctors tried everything, but—" He paused, collecting himself. "She passed away 3 months after her diagnosis." "I'm so sorry," I whispered. He nodded slowly. "After she died, I looked for Maria. I wanted to tell her. I wanted to give her some of Lily's things, but she had disappeared, dropped out of school, left no forwarding address. I hired investigators, but they never found her. I thought about my mother, about the way she used to disappear for days at a time, about the secrets she kept, about the sadness in her eyes that never fully went away. She was running from something," I said. "I never knew what." Richard looked at me with an expression that broke my heart. "She was running from grief," he said. "Lily's death destroyed her. She blamed herself. She thought she should have noticed the symptoms earlier. She thought she could have saved her." I felt tears spill down my cheeks. "Is that why she started using?" I asked. "To numb the pain?" Richard nodded slowly. "That would be my guess." I touched the necklace again, the little hummingbird that had rested against my chest for as long as I could remember. She kept this, I said. Even through everything, she never sold it, she never lost it. Because it was all she had left of Lily, Richard said, and now it's all you have left of both of them. The silence that followed was heavy with years of grief, loss, and strange connection. I sat there trying to process everything. My mother had been loved. She'd had a best friend. She'd been part of something beautiful before the darkness swallowed her. And this man, this billionaire who owned the store where I worked, had spent nearly 2 decades looking for her. Why? I asked finally. Why did you keep searching? Richard's eyes met mine. Because Lily asked me to, he said. In the last days, when she knew the end was coming, she made me promise. She said Maria was lost and that someone needed to find her. She said Maria had too much light inside her to let it go out. My chest ached with a sorrow I couldn't name. She was wrong, I said. The light did go out. My mother died when I was 9. Richard reached out and took my hand. His grip was warm and steady. But it didn't, he said. You're here, you have that necklace, you have that light inside you. I saw it the moment you looked up at me, the same kindness, the same strength. I wanted to believe him, but all I could think about was the gray cardigan, the group home, the $3,000 I still needed. I'm not strong. I said, I'm barely surviving. Richard leaned back, studied me for a long moment. Tell me about your life, he said. Tell me everything. So I did. I told him about the foster homes, the ones that were cold and indifferent, the ones that were worse. I told him about aging out of the system, about the fear that kept me awake at night. I told him about saving every penny, about the job that was my only hope, about the coworkers who mocked me and the manager who let them. I told him about the loneliness, the feeling of being invisible, the constant exhaustion of having to fight for every single thing. When I finished, Richard was quiet. Then he said something that changed my life forever. I'm going to help you, Emma, not because I pity you, but because you're family. I stared at him. Family? Lily and Maria were sisters in every way that mattered, he said. That makes you my granddaughter, not by blood but by love, and I don't abandon family. The tears came again. I couldn't stop them. You don't even know me, I said. I know enough, he said. I know you show up every day in the same cardigan and never complain. I know you work twice as hard as anyone else on that floor. I know you've been through more in 17 years than most people face in a lifetime, and you're still standing. He stood up and walked to the window. I also know that if Lily were here, she would be furious with me for not finding you sooner. She would tell me to stop wallowing in my grief and actually do something. He turned back to me. So here's what's going to happen. First, I'm going to make sure you have a safe place to live, not a group home, a real home. Second, I'm going to pay for your education, whatever you want to study, wherever you want to go. Third, I'm going to deal with the people who made your life miserable in this store. I shook my head. You don't have to. I know I don't have to, he said. I want to. Let me do this, Emma. Let me honor their memory. I looked down at the hummingbird necklace. My mother's last gift, my connection to a woman I'd never known, a bridge across years of grief and silence. Okay, I whispered. Okay. The next week unfolded like a dream I was afraid to wake from. Richard Thornton was a man of his word. Within 3 days, I was moved out of the group home and into a furnished apartment in Lincoln Park. It was small but beautiful, with big windows and a kitchen that actually worked. For the first time in my life, I had a home that was mine. He arranged for a tutor to help me finish high school with honors. He set up a college fund that would cover any university I chose. He gave me a credit card for essentials and told me to stop worrying about money. But he did something else too, something that meant more than any of it. He invited me to dinner at his home, a sprawling estate in Lake Forest that looked like something out of a movie. And there in his study, he showed me everything. Photos of Lily and my mother together, laughing on campus, dancing at parties, studying in coffee shops. I saw my mother young and happy and full of hope. I saw the woman she'd been before the darkness took her. Richard told me stories about how Lily and Maria used to stay up all night talking, about their plans to travel the world together, about the way Maria had held Lily's hand in the hospital at the very end. She was there when Lily died, Richard said. She was the last person Lily saw, and afterward, Maria kissed her forehead and whispered something I couldn't hear. What do you think she said? I asked. Richard smiled sadly. I think she said she'd carry her forever, and she did, Emma. She carried her all the way to you. I cried that night, deep, racking sobs that came from a place I didn't know existed, but for the first time they weren't tears of grief alone. They were tears of healing. As for Madison and Derek, Richard made good on that promise too. He didn't fire them, not at first. He did something more effective. He made them work under me. I was promoted to junior floor manager. At 17, the youngest in the store's history. Madison lasted 2 weeks before she quit. Derek tried to apologize, but the words rang hollow, and eventually he transferred to a different location. I didn't celebrate their downfall. I just focused on doing my job well, because that's what survivors do. We don't waste energy on revenge. We build something better. 6 months later, I started at Northwestern University on a full scholarship, supplemented by Richard's support. I studied psychology because I wanted to understand people. I wanted to help kids who'd been through what I'd been through. I wanted to be the person I'd needed when I was 9 years old. Richard and I grew close. He became the grandfather I'd never had. He came to my graduation. He walked me down the aisle at my wedding years later. He held my daughter the day she was born. And when he passed away at 91, peaceful in his sleep, I was there holding his hand. Just like my mother had held Lily's, he left me more than money. He left me a legacy, a foundation in Lily and Maria's name that helps young people aging out of foster care. Today, it's helped over 3,000 kids find stable housing, education, and hope. But the thing I treasure most isn't the money or the foundation. It's this necklace. 2 hummingbirds forged in love passed through grief and finally reunited. My mother carried Lily forever, and now I carry them both. Thanks for watching. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe and visit the channel for more real-life stories of hope, healing, and the connections that change everything.